Have you ever stopped to imagine what the world would look like if the Roman Empire, one of history's greatest civilizations, had never fallen? What if its power, culture, and influence stretched uninterrupted all the way to our modern age? How would our societies, technologies, languages, and even governments be different today? Would the boundaries between nations exist as they do now? Or would a vast empire still dominate much of the world? Today, we embark on an intriguing journey to explore this what-if scenario. What if the Roman Empire never collapsed? The Roman Empire, at its peak, was arguably the most powerful and expansive empire in human history. Stretching across vast swaths of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, it shaped politics, culture, law, and technology for centuries. However, around the 5th century AD, internal conflicts, economic troubles, and external invasions weakened the empire, leading to its eventual collapse. This collapse marked the end of antiquity and the beginning of the Middle Ages, a period characterized by political fragmentation, cultural shifts, and social upheavals. But let's imagine a different world, one in which the Roman Empire never fell. Instead of fracturing, it maintained its cohesion and power, evolving through the centuries to meet new challenges. Imagine Rome's roads and aqueducts preserved and modernized, its laws refined and adapted to changing times, and its political system transformed, but still central and strong. Latin remained the common language, connecting diverse peoples and territories under one vast governance. The empire's influence extended into arts, philosophy, science, and infrastructure, constantly driving innovation rather than retreating. In this alternate reality, the empire's political unity might have prevented the centuries of warfare and instability that shaped medieval Europe. The Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and even the Industrial Revolution could have taken very different forms or timelines, influenced heavily by a dominant Roman cultural and administrative model. Instead of a patchwork of kingdoms and nations, a unified imperial system might have created a different balance of power, trade, and societal development. The implications of such a sustained empire reach far beyond mere politics. The spread and standardization of language, law, and culture would likely have profound effects on education, science, and even religion. Conversely, the concentration of power might have stifled diversity, creativity, or freedom in unforeseen ways. This is the world we'll explore, a world forever shaped by Rome's uninterrupted legacy. If the Roman Empire had never collapsed, the world we live in today would be strikingly different, with both significant benefits and challenges stemming from its uninterrupted existence. One of the most notable advantages would be the continuation and refinement of Roman law. The empire's legal framework laid the groundwork for many modern legal systems, emphasizing order, rights, and governance. A sustained Roman legal system might have created a more stable and predictable society, where disputes were resolved through structured courts rather than war. Infrastructure and technological advancements would also be notable. The Romans were master engineers, building roads, aqueducts, and public buildings that stood for centuries. With ongoing investment, these systems could have evolved alongside emerging technologies, fostering trade and communication over vast territories, effectively shrinking distances and connecting people like never before. Culturally, the arts, philosophy, and education could have flourished under the patronage of a stable empire. With Latin as a unifying language, knowledge transfer across regions might have been accelerated, promoting literacy, scientific inquiry, and philosophical debates that pushed humanity forward at a rapid pace. Politically, a unified empire could have prevented the fragmentation and chaos that followed Rome's fall, avoiding prolonged wars among successor states and possibly even mitigating some of the social inequalities that arose in later periods. However, such a vast empire would also face inherent drawbacks. The concentration of power in the hands of a central authority might have led to authoritarianism, limiting individual freedoms and political participation. Without competition among states, innovation can stagnate. The creative tensions that arise from rivalry and cultural exchange might have been dampened. Social inequality could have been perpetuated or even exacerbated. The Roman social structure heavily relied on elites and, regrettably, on slavery. A continuous empire might have institutionalized these hierarchies further, hindering social mobility and justice. Moreover, cultural diversity might have suffered. The dominance of a single culture and language could have suppressed minority traditions, languages, and religions, potentially resulting in cultural homogenization that reduces the rich tapestry of human history. In essence, the never-fallen Roman Empire scenario presents a double-edged sword, a world of stability, progress, and unity balanced against risks of stagnation, repression, and loss of diversity. Imagine a young girl named Julia living in the heart of the Roman Empire in the 21st century. Her home city is Rome itself, the capital of a sprawling empire that has endured for nearly 2 millennia without interruption. Julia's daily life reflects the unique blend of ancient tradition and modern advancement shaped by this enduring empire. Julia attends a prestigious academy that combines classical Roman education, Latin literature, rhetoric, and philosophy, with cutting-edge technology such as virtual reality and artificial intelligence. Her teachers emphasize the importance of Roman virtues like discipline, loyalty, and civic duty, which remain deeply ingrained in society. Each morning, Julia walks through the city's impressive infrastructure. Roads paved with stones laid centuries ago, but meticulously maintained and upgraded. She crosses aqueducts that still carry fresh water from distant mountains, and sees public baths and forums where citizens gather to discuss ideas and politics, a vibrant echo of ancient times. The empire's political system is a complex bureaucracy centered in the Senate, where decisions are made for millions of citizens across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Julia's family is part of this system. Her parents work as officials, ensuring the smooth running of provincial governance. However, Julia's life isn't without constraints. Freedom of speech is limited, and political dissent is often suppressed to maintain unity. The empire's vast size means it must enforce strict laws, sometimes at the cost of individual liberties. Moreover, regional cultures and languages have mostly blended into the dominant Latin-based culture, making the world more uniform but less diverse. Through Julia's story, we see the real-life implications of a world where the Roman Empire never fell, a society with impressive unity, stability, and technological progress, but also one where freedom and diversity face significant challenges. The idea that the Roman Empire could have survived and evolved into a modern global power is supported by several historical, sociological, and technological considerations. First, from an administrative standpoint, the Romans developed one of the earliest effective bureaucracies. Their system of provincial governance allowed for local autonomy balanced with centralized control, a framework that modern states still emulate. If the empire had continued adapting its governance structures to changing circumstances, incorporating technological advancements in communication and management, it might have avoided the inefficiencies that contributed to its historical decline. Technologically, Rome's engineering feats laid foundational infrastructure that influenced future civilizations. Their road networks, aqueducts, and sanitation systems were unparalleled in the ancient world. Maintaining and modernizing such infrastructure could have accelerated economic integration and cultural exchange across the empire's territories. This would create a level of connectivity similar to, or even surpassing, today's globalized world, fostering innovation and commerce. Linguistically and culturally, Latin's role as the empire's lingua franca promoted cohesion among diverse populations. With continuous Roman influence, a unified language and cultural framework could have persisted, facilitating education and governance. This is evident in how Romance languages, derived from Latin, dominate parts of Europe today, hinting at the empire's lasting cultural footprint. Philosophically and scientifically, the preservation of Romance Greek knowledge could have prevented the intellectual stagnation commonly associated with the so-called Dark Ages. A sustained intellectual tradition might have led to earlier scientific revolutions, changing the timeline of human progress dramatically. However, history shows that long-standing empires risk stagnation. Concentrated power often resists disruptive innovations, and bureaucratic inertia can slow decision-making. Balancing stability with adaptability would be crucial for such an empire's survival. Overall, the Roman Empire's potential survival is plausible if it had embraced reforms and innovation, blending tradition with modernization to navigate evolving social and technological landscapes. Beyond the main scenario of an unfallen Roman Empire, several intriguing alternative what-if paths emerge that further shape our understanding of history's possibilities. Scenario 1. Roman exploration and colonization of the Americas. Imagine if Rome had developed maritime technology advanced enough to cross the Atlantic Ocean centuries before Columbus. This early contact could have resulted in the colonization and exploitation of the Americas by the Roman Empire. Such a development would drastically alter indigenous civilizations' fates and reshape global demographics, trade routes, and cultural exchanges. The ancient Romans might have introduced their legal and social systems to the New World, permanently changing its course. The Roman Empire famously transitioned from polytheism to Christianity. But what if it had retained its traditional Roman paganism, or embraced a different religious evolution? This divergence would influence moral frameworks, art, and societal structures globally. A world where Roman religious thought remained dominant could have had entirely different cultural values and conflicts than those shaped by monotheistic religions. Despite Roman dominance, rival powers like the Germanic tribes, Parthians, or later, Eastern empires could have mounted continuous resistance. Their interactions might spark ongoing conflicts or cultural syntheses, keeping the empire dynamic but also challenged. This balance could promote military innovation and diplomatic complexity, affecting how borders and cultures evolved. Technology's path might diverge significantly, developing based on Roman engineering principles, legal priorities, and philosophical outlooks. Instead of the Renaissance, sparked by rediscovery of classical knowledge after Rome's fall, scientific progress might have been steady and incremental, but in different directions. This alternate development might have produced distinct inventions, urban designs, and social institutions. Each of these alternative pathways adds depth and nuance to the idea of an enduring Roman Empire, highlighting how a single historical shift can ripple through countless aspects of civilization. Let's pause and consider some questions that challenge our assumptions and ignite deeper reflection. If a massive empire like Rome lasted for millennia, would people still hunger for personal freedom and innovation? Or would the weight of tradition and authority suppress such desires? Could a stable, unified empire ultimately become too rigid and dull, erasing the vibrant cultural diversity and creative tensions that fuel human progress? Is the fragmentation of power and competition among states, often seen as chaotic, actually essential for scientific breakthroughs, artistic movements, and political reforms? What if Rome's expansion into the Americas had triggered conflicts that reshaped the world in ways we can barely imagine? Would indigenous civilizations have survived or blended with Roman culture? Imagine a present-day society where Latin remains the common language, architecture echoes ancient Rome, and citizens live under imperial laws. Would that be an ideal utopia or a stifling regime? These questions invite us not just to imagine history differently, but to reflect on the very nature of progress, freedom, and identity. History is not only shaped by events, but also by how we think about possibilities and consequences. As you ponder these twists, consider how fragile and yet powerful human civilization truly is, always balancing order with change, unity with diversity. In exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of the Roman Empire never falling, we've uncovered a world filled with profound possibilities and significant challenges. On one hand, a lasting empire might have brought unparalleled stability, technological advancement, and cultural unity, forging a civilization that spans continents and centuries. The foundations laid by Roman law, engineering, and governance could have paved the way for a uniquely continuous human progress. Yet, this continuity also carries risks of stagnation, authoritarianism, and cultural uniformity. The absence of competing states and ideas might have dulled the innovative spark and restricted individual freedoms, reminding us that diversity and change often drive growth. This thought experiment encourages us to reflect on the delicate balance between order and freedom, tradition and innovation. It reminds us that history is shaped not only by events, but by the ideas and decisions that ripple across time. So, what do you think? Would a world ruled by an eternal empire be the pinnacle of civilization? Or would it lack the vibrancy born from change and diversity? The answer may lie in how we view progress itself. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history and imagination. If you have more what-if scenarios or questions, I'm here to explore them with you.